Tonight, at some point, you are going to do something that no other animal on Earth does quite the way you do. You are going to stay awake after dark, not because you are hunting, not because you are fleeing, not because something woke you in the night, and you need to assess the threat. You are going to stay awake because you choose to, because the light is still on, because there is something on a screen, or someone still talking, or simply because the night feels like your time, and you are not ready to surrender it yet. This feels completely natural. It is also, in the full sweep of human history, almost entirely new. For 300,000 years, the entire span of anatomically modern human existence, the night was something else entirely, not a continuation of the day, not leisure time, not dead hours to be filled. The night was a distinct world, with its own rules, its own dangers, its own social architecture, and its own biology, and what your ancestors did inside it shaped everything. About the species you became, the answer is stranger, and more important than you have been told. It starts with fire, the earliest confirmed evidence of humans. Controlling fire comes from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, roughly 1 million years ago. But fire did something far more significant than keep early humans warm or cook their food. Fire restructured time itself. Before fire, every primate, including your ancestors, operated on the same schedule as the rest of the animal kingdom. Daylight meant movement, foraging, social activity, survival. Darkness meant stillness. You found a sheltered spot, you climbed, you stayed motionless, and you waited for the sun. Moving at night was not a lifestyle choice. It was a death sentence. Leopards, hyenas, and a dozen other predators were built for darkness in ways that humans simply were not. Our eyes are weak in low light. Our ears are average. Our noses are poor. In the dark, we were prey. Fire changed the equation in a single generation. A campfire creates a circle of safety roughly 30 feet in diameter. Inside that circle, the rules of the night do not apply. Predators avoid fire. Warmth extends the usable hours. Light makes the dark survivable. And suddenly, for the first time in the history of any primate, there were hours after sunset with nothing in them that had to be done. So what did they do with those hours? For decades, anthropologists assumed the answer was simple. They slept. The night was for rest and nothing else. Then the research started contradicting that assumption from every direction at once. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiessner published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that would quietly reframe how scientists understood the function of those firelit hours. Wiessner had spent years recording conversations among the hoansi, Bushmen of the Kalahari, one of the last groups on Earth still living something close to the original human lifestyle. What she found was a complete transformation in human behavior at sunset. During the day, roughly 80% of conversations were practical. Who is hunting where? Which plants are ready? Disputes over resources and territory. Negotiations between groups. Daytime talk was work, but at night, around the fire, 81% of conversations were stories, not logistics, not economics. Stories, tales of distant people and places, myths about the origins of the world, accounts of ancestors who had done extraordinary things, jokes that spread through the camp like fire catching dry grass. The night was when humans stopped managing their survival and started building something else, a shared, interior world that existed nowhere in a physical environment around them. Wiessner argued that firelit conversation was the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. It was where humans first learned to think beyond the immediate present, to imagine futures that hadn't happened yet, to feel connected to people they had never met and places they had never been. The campfire, she wrote, was where culture was invented. But the social life around the fire was only one part of what was happening in those ancient nights. There was something else, something that modern science took until the 1990s to rediscover, and that most people alive today have never experienced. Your ancestors did not sleep the way you slept in 2001. Historian A. Roger Ekirch published a paper that dismantled one of the most fundamental assumptions about human biology. He had spent 16 years excavating historical records, prayer books from the 1400s, court documents, diaries, medical texts, letters from ordinary people, even passages in Homer. And across 5 centuries of documentation, he found the same phenomenon described again and again, if it were completely unremarkable. First sleep and second sleep, before industrialization, humans did not sleep in a single continuous block. They went to bed shortly after sunset and slept for approximately 4 hours. Then they woke. They stayed awake for 1 to 2 hours, sometimes longer, in the middle of the night. Then they slept again until dawn. This was not insomnia. This was not dysfunction. This was the default human sleep pattern, documented across cultures and centuries, so normalized that writers referenced it the way we reference lunch, as something everyone simply did and needed no explanation for. What happened in that middle window? Everything. A French physician writing in the 1500s recommended that couples use this time to conceive children, arguing the rested body performed the task better. People prayed. They interpreted their dreams while the images were still vivid. They visited neighbors. They lay in the dark and thought a simply thought, in a state of stillness that the busy hours of the day never permitted. A medical manual from the same period described the watch, as they called it, as the finest time for study and reflection. The mind, it said, was calmer and more receptive in those hours than at any other point in the waking day. Then in 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr at the National Institute of Mental Health ran the experiment that confirmed what history had been saying. Wehr took volunteers and removed all artificial light from their lives for a month. 14 hours of darkness every night. The same conditions your ancestors experienced before electric light. Within weeks, every single participant independently settled into the same pattern. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, 4 more hours of sleep, until dawn. No one suggested this. No one modeled it. The pattern simply emerged, as if something dormant in the human nervous system had been waiting for the right conditions to reactivate. But Wehr measured something even more striking. During that middle waking period, his participants were producing elevated levels of prolactin, the same hormone released during meditation, during deep creative states, during the hours after sex. Their subjective experience matched. They described feeling profoundly calm, reflective, open, a state quite unlike either normal wakefulness or sleep. A third state, one that most people alive today have never once experienced because artificial light has made it physiologically impossible to reach. So here's what those ancient nights actually contained: the early dark hours, fire, community, storytelling, the transmission of culture, mythology, social bonds, emotional life, everything that makes humans something more than a highly intelligent foraging animal. The deeper dark, a sleep pattern the human body was designed for, not the collapsed 8-hour block of the industrialized world, but a 2-phase architecture with a window of quiet consciousness in the center, a window that produced a neurochemical state of unusual receptivity, a state the ancient world did not treat as wasted time. They treated it as the best hours. And then electric light arrived. Paris began installing street lamps in the 1660s under Louis XIV, who wanted criminals off the streets. London followed. Candles became cheaper. Gas lamps arrived in the 1800s. And in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. And within a single generation, the nights that humans had inhabited for 300,000 years ceased to exist. The biphasic sleep pattern, the 2-phase architecture your nervous system still carries encoded inside it, collapsed into the single, consolidated block we now treat as normal. The window of quiet reflection disappeared, and in its place arrived a condition that modern medicine classifies as a disorder and treats with pharmaceuticals. We call it insomnia. What if it isn't? What if the person lying awake at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, restless and frustrated in the dark? What if they are not malfunctioning? What if they are simply a 300,000-year-old organism doing exactly what it was designed to do, in a world so thoroughly altered that the design has nowhere left to go? The campfire is gone. The stories have moved to screens. The second sleep has become a diagnosis, and the night, the ancient, inhabited, socially rich, biologically distinct night that your ancestors lived inside for the entire span of human existence, has been replaced by something we barely even notice. We just call it late.